Welcome to Powerhouse. Joining us today is Olivia Lee, co-founder of LIVVIUM, Web3 for global brands. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. Hey, Joyce. It's really great to be here.
So good to have you. We've met various times through Web3 events, but before we go into that, I would like you to give us some background on your career and how do you get to the current position.
Yeah, great. So, a little bit about my background. I'm born and raised in Canada, but I've been in Hong Kong for the last 20 years. And in the last 20 years in Hong Kong, I've worked in several roles across many different industries, also held different senior positions. So I never stayed in the same job twice in terms of my progression. And then I worked in things like such as luxury branding for a luxury Swiss watch. I worked in education. I ran a fundraising company raising money for charities in Hong Kong and Asia. And then that also led me to starting my own business several times around. We can get into that a little bit more. And then one of my last jobs was working for a private investment company. And that's also kind of how I got into Web3.
Oh, awesome. That is quite a few different change in career and industry. Maybe you can explain how you transition. That's quite interesting too. Each time you transition, it must be quite a bit of work and research. And so how did you get into that?
So I guess from each of my roles, there are certain things about me that I always knew were like my passions and it has never changed. In as far as I remember, even back in like high school or even junior high, you can even call it like that. I've always loved fashion. It's really kind of like how I live and breathe and I want to know about news about that. So fashion's one. I've
Mhm.
always been interested in technology and I always did chase gadgets. I realize that about myself now. And then I've always kind of been interested in this whole idea of retail and e-commerce. Being somebody growing up in the 90s, I really kind of see that take off.
Mhm.
So that's sort of the things that kind of underlies my interest. But then from my working point of view, I did pursue fashion type of jobs when I was in Hong Kong. And that's how I got into luxury Swiss watch. So I worked for a watch brand as a brand manager, managing Hong Kong, opening POS, that's point of sales in Hong Kong, Macau, and for a short time in China.
Mm.
But then across many of these things, I've also had a digital fashion magazine at some point, like maybe 5 years ago.
Wow.
And that digital fashion magazine was one of the first kind of like rich media buy directly from the website, using social influencers, digital influencers as part of the kind of a marketing mix. So
Mhm.
all of these things were using the kind of things I enjoy. But then in terms of like how I got into Web3 is actually started from my last job. So marketing was another big of my passion. That's what I studied in school.
Mhm.
So when I worked for my last role as the director of marketing for the group, I was exposed to a lot of wonderful things that my ex-boss was into. So his portfolio was pretty much alternative assets, things that are kind of like extraordinary, like not typical commercial hospitality, restaurants, etc. It
Right.
was really into things like, I don't know, quantum computing, alternative protein, which is not really that alternative now, but
Right.
alternative protein. Web3 is naturally one of them.
Mhm.
So then through my role there, I just kind of understood because he was just talking about it a lot. He explained it in such a enthusiastic way that kind of got me interested because frankly, I just want to do my job well. I have to really understand what makes my boss interested. Like, what do I need to pay attention to? It's not just come in for the role and then go home, right? So I really
Right.
try to understand it from that way. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how I got into Web3 because during that time, he had a lot of people coming up to him asking for advice. Like, how do I do a meme coin? What is a DAO? What is an STO? So
Mhm.
naturally, a lot of these kind of projects or pitches kind of landed on me. But then from the side that I enjoy the most, which is digital fashion and the metaverse side, really was sort of like off hours because those are the things that my boss wasn't really looking at the time. And
Right.
I came across a metaverse deck. Like imagine the amount of investment decks that kind of like land on my desk.
Yeah.
But most of these investment decks looks about the same. Like it's always like green in colors, very like corporate, like always DeFi, STO. Like it doesn't catch my interest.
Mm.
But then I came across this one deck that was like holographic. It had like avatars. It looked like a game. There were like brand names that everyone would know that's in the deck. And I was like, what is this metaverse thing? So then I kind of took some time to understood it on my own time. He didn't invest in it, but then I end up spending time learning about it, reading about it. And the funny thing is, about 3 years ago, I promise you there were not that much information about the metaverse. There was only two major people that are really talking about it, and they're very huge thought leaders now. One is Matthew Ball, where he wrote the whole metaverse essay. So I read that from front to back. And then the other one is Kathy Hackle, which is known as the godmother of the metaverse. So I kind of gone to it that way. I tried on my first digital fashion piece, something like this headset I'm wearing right now,
Yes.
about in 2021. I remember I posted it on my IG, and I remember I had some friends or followers kind of like question it, kind of like, what is this? Is it that exciting? And I was a little insecure, so I actually removed it. So, but that's kind of how I got into digital fashion. So I found the first thing, and I'm always the type to try new things.
Wow, super exciting and super interesting in terms of your journey. So explain a bit of the transition and how then did you kind of come out and started your own company?
You're very familiar with the Web3 space too, Joyce. So I think when it was high, like when it was like a bull market, it was so exciting. You're working like 12-hour days. It was a great time. So how we got into starting LIVVIUM was not planned, but more like a personal journey, like a search for what's next. So when the crypto market dropped about 2 years ago, I naturally lost my job. And it was such a shock to me because I was just so happy with the role I had and what I was doing and learning. And I was being challenged. There was a lot of challenges. I really enjoyed it. And I really believe in the whole Web3 and the whole blockchain type of foundation. So when I lost my role, I was very confused. And I just didn't know what is next for me. And I was going through like a pretty low period, kind of like when you work so hard and you believe in something so much and you give all your hours on something and then all of a sudden it's gone, you're just sort of like, what's next? So what I did is I took the time to discover the things that brings me joy again. And to me, it was going back to what I love, which is content creation, or more specifically, writing. So as I mentioned before, I had a digital fashion magazine. So I really enjoy like writing articles, doing research, sharing. It was just a whole process for me. So during that time, I just went back to what I enjoy. Like I finally had the free time to read up on all the material that I didn't have time for. So what I did is I started kind of like asking questions. So this is at the rise of the whole metaverse talk. I took the time to kind of like discover these platforms, but from like a consumer's point of view and also from a marketer's and brand's point of view, because these are just sort of the kind of well-roundedness I like to think from, how does it solve the consumer's problem? How does it kind of lead to the bottom line for the brands, that kind of stuff. So it came in that mindset. And then I just went in and explored some of these kind of happening brand activations. So at the time, there were just several that was happening. I think a lot of brands were discovering it. I went in, so I call that jumping in, with my digital avatar, my digital twin. Her name is LIVVIUM. I jumped in, explored it, write about it. So really demystify and decode what it means. Like what makes a brand want to launch on this platform and not on another one? Why does a consumer like myself want to go in? What's in it for me? And then, of course, I try to bring in the different mindsets from the different kind of target audience, like either you're millennial or you're Gen Z, because I have two kids. So I kind of use that kind of mindset to discover these things. So I started writing about it. Put it on LinkedIn. That became the channel of my choice, the platform. And very quickly, I had quite a lot of people following me and kind of appreciating my posts. And that's kind of how it happened. So that's the content creator side of things. But LIVVIUM ended up becoming a consultancy. So LIVVIUM is a consultancy that helps brand discover what's going on for Web3. Sort of like future proofing. You can think that there's some marketing strategy, branding strategy. Myself, I realize I love ideation. I'm more like a creative person, but with the strategic mindset.
Yep.
So I use it as a bridge to help brands discover what's next in the Web3 and the changing space. So between the content creator, LIVVIUM, which happens to be my co-founder, LIVVIUM, my little twin, and
Nice.
myself, consultant hat, it became LIVVIUM the consultancy. So I help brands in Web2 space, or they are already digital native companies, to kind of connect and kind of fill in the gap, whatever that they need to discover.
That's amazing. And that's pretty cool too, because it kind of, as you said, bridge your love of coming up with ideas and strategy and helping brands reach out to consumers and to have a broader reach, right? And mass appeal, I guess. And I think that's always been kind of, well, I think we're still at that stage where Web3 needs to cross over to the mass. I think a lot of brands are doing that. But it's still at that stage, right? I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think it's already there or still a lot more work to get to the mass?
We are far, far away, Joyce, I think. There's still a lot to be discovered, a lot to be linked.
Mhm.
A lot of products and services are being built or reworked from some of the changes we've experienced in the last year or so. There's just been so many changes and it's constantly changing. So
Mhm.
to answer your question is definitely not there yet, but
Right,
it's starting to be a little bit more mainstream. And it's
right.
mainstream is because we're starting to use features that kind of helps our daily lives, that kind
Mm,
of gets integrated into everything that we are do, even if it's our online kind of a persona or in real life, that goes for brand or even from a personal standpoint. And all of those features become the next step or the missing piece to kind of bring us into the entire Web3 world. So we're not going to go too deep into the Web3 and the kind of tenets of Web3 today, but essentially these are the small steps that's going to help. And each step helps. Like perhaps even getting a digital collectible at your next grocery store or something like that is going to help you kind of get integrated into the space. But we are a long ways away.
right. Yeah, for sure. And there's so many applications or potential areas of application where no one's been implementing yet, right? I think there's a lot of talks in different areas. And I guess digital fashion is one of the first areas, but there's so many other areas like property and other developments that could use this. But with digital, maybe you can kind of talk about that because that's an area of interest for yourself, like fashion, and you're wearing something today. And how do you see that industry grow?
Well, let's kind of rewind a bit just to get your audience kind of up to date
Right.
to learn and know what is digital fashion in the first place.
Mhm.
I think in the quickest way to explain it, digital fashion from what we thought we knew or what it was is probably the output of any kind of format that designers use when they make their creations. Okay, so that could be counted as digital fashion
Mm.
in the first generation. But now, in the context of Web3, I like to narrow it down to like three types of digital fashion, and there's all different usages. Just keep in mind that there's not just one way, it's probably many different interconnected ways. I like to first call one as in real life digital fashion. So that's sort of like things that are digital twins, like a digital twin of something,
Mhm.
or it has an NFC chip on a physical items that kind of allows you to access information about that physical piece of clothing in online kind of context. So, for example, maybe you'll find that some of these luxury brands, like legacy brands,
Mhm.
like under the LVMH group, will start to have something called a digital product passport (DPP) in their items that they buy. So that kind of is like a forever receipt and proof of purchase,
Mhm.
authenticity, provenance. So in the future, you may want to sell it to the next person and you'll know it's authenticated. So that I'd like to call in real life fashion. So it's probably the easiest for people to understand would be something like that.
Right.
And then the second one would be the one that I'm kind of demonstrating today. I like to call that on real life. So ORL, so on real life digital fashion. It means like basically a filter. It's something that you have fun with,
Mm.
to express yourself. Today, what I'm wearing is this outfit or accessory by Renegades, which is a digital native only brand. And it's kind of powered by DressX here. But what it is it's like a Snapchat filter. It's like if you look back to the first generation of Snapchat filter, you have those like funny
Yeah.
tongue and the dog ear that everyone's making each other laugh. And then the next iteration was like makeup filter. Like I'm really glad there's a makeup filter today, but there's a bit of a blur, like a makeup filter. And
I
you know,
need
so
one.
that's like the next one. And then now it's kind of like gone the different usages has changed. So now it's become brands kind of capitalizing on people that spend a lot of time on social media or online like FaceTime or Zoom calls, etc., like today,
Mhm.
and put a branding or storytell element to it, right? So that's like on real life. I like to call it Snapchat, but now you can wear maybe try on an outfit that you
Right.
otherwise wouldn't be able to buy. Okay, so I like to call that on real life. And
Mhm.
then the last one, like in general, it's called unreal life. Okay, so unreal life generally means as like skins for games.
Right.
Because in this whole kind of context of Web3, there's the element of gaming in it because that's sort of the market all brands are trying to look at appeal, like
Mhm.
to appeal right now.
Mhm.
So it's like for your avatars. So if you are in like Roblox, if you are on Fortnite, if you are playing on something called Spatial, which I'm on quite often,
Mhm.
these are clothing for your digital avatar. So
Right.
those are the three types of digital fashion. Now, what I see in this industry and why I believe in it is firstly, the numbers don't really lie. There is just a lot of attention on the next segment of consumers,
Mhm.
that being Gen Z and the Gen Alpha is a huge consumer group. They're going to take over like 50% of the consumption power by 2030, at least if my numbers, oh, no numbers, but if that's correct.
Right.
And then also, there's a lot of like great things about it across the entire fashion industry. So
Mhm.
fashion industry hasn't had any disruption in a very long time. So if
Mhm.
you use digital fashion, it can change across every kind of stages in the entire creative process. So
Mhm.
from a designer's point of view, they're able to express themselves because there is no limit to kind of budgeting, textiles, gravity. They can come up with outrageous kind of like ideas and designs, right? From the logistics point of view, maybe you can pre-sell it so then people can place order like a custom made order and prepay for it so you know exactly how many items you're gonna manufacture. So that's gonna save in logistics, carbon emission, etc.
Yeah.
If I fast forward a bit to the last application for a consumer to try things on,
Mhm.
it could be from like a storytelling point of view. By wearing this item, maybe it kind of triggers something in a mirror in a brick and mortar store that tells me about that designer's first inspiration, something that she saw, felt that you otherwise, as the last consumer, the one who's buying, may not know, right? Or you try it on before you buy. So it could save you the time from buying something and returning it because assuming there's hyper customization data that's involved, you know what sizes fits you as well. So this is why I think digital fashion is really the next sort of most exciting thing that's happened in a very long time.
Yeah, and that sounds very exciting, and the way you laid it out so clearly, and definitely getting me excited too, right? In terms of how, as a consumer, you can see where it's going, and there are a lot of things like trying on the sizes and just even style. Like, don't know, you don't want to try on so many things, right? Or if you're buying online, I don't want to order and return so many times. So this is a way to streamline and make it fun as well. So quite exciting. And so, would you say like a lot of your clients, or naturally clients that you attract, are more in the fashion branding industry?
I kind of started to hone in things that excite me, Joyce,
Mm.
and things that just keeps it going because as you imagine now, there's just so saturated with information, like across traditional media outlets,
Mhm.
across all of the many content creators that are out there, just so much information. So I tend to just focus on what keeps it exciting. Like what kind of news that I can just read the headline and just scroll down in 20 seconds and I would get the gist of it. So
Mhm.
because of that, I focus predominantly fashion and beauty. So these are the two major area, like the pillars that I'm into. But then of course, lifestyle and music will also come into play. But at the moment, I think it's definitely fashion and beauty brands that would reach out to me either as a content creator or somebody to collaborate on or to be an advisor on their project.
Well, with all the projects coming to you, sounds amazing and it sounds so much fun. There must be quite a few things you have to feel through. And what are some of your criterias in terms of who you assess to work with and what kind of brand you want to work with?
Okay, that's a great question, Joyce. Well, for sure, I'm very happy and very delighted that I do have a lot of inbounds requests to work with me. So I hate saying the word blessed, but hashtag blessed. There's kind of two types of projects I have. No, three, in fact. One are just sort of projects that I'm part of as a founding team. So those things are ongoing. Another type are from my consultancy side of things. The consultancy side, I also have some inbounds and I'm actively looking for the right project to work with. Those I have like a regular kind of constant conversation. And then there are the ones that's most active for me right now are other products or solutions, and they kind of reach out to me as a content creator or as a advocate for the Web3 space. So I think the ones that take up majority of my time right now are the ones that brands reach out to me. So those are the ones that I need to spend more time thinking, how does it fit in my overall branding and some of my own long-term goals. So how do I filter or find the best ones for me? For one is I find that because I'm most active on LinkedIn and I make content at least 3 to 4 times a week. That I find as part of my job, just what I do, discovering new things and writing about it. I have a lot of people, mostly fashion related, I think, or they're either building a game, there may be a solution as part of the chain of events leading to the Metaverse platforms. They all reach out to me for partnerships or collaborations. Some of those is just kind of utilizing my LIVVIUM company to kind of connect the dots, and that's what LIVVIUM's for. So I'm very glad that's happening. The other one is just using me as a content creator because I think in the last a year and a half, almost 2 years, I've been very actively building my personal branding as a digital fashion and a metaverse explorer, I like to call it. So I have brands that reach out. I filter it by finding people who have a real connection, those that actually took the time to know who I am and not spamming me and just kind of throwing it out there, just sort of like a trial. Like, it doesn't hurt to send me a DM.
Mhm.
But I always can tell if somebody follows my content and it's genuine. So that obviously cuts off a lot of people that's not going to make it to the next one. And then I used to be so excited and just so thankful that people see what I'm doing is important, that I do have a voice and my insights matter, that I said yes to meetings and to say yes to a lot of partnerships. First of all, a lot of them don't pan out. The partnerships are not in the progress or the stage that they can take on a content creator, a personality, or an advisor. Other ones are it takes up a lot of my time because if you imagine that I'm based in Asia and a lot of these companies that are one of like the leaders or the one who's active are likely in Europe. So my mornings and my evenings are my craziest, busiest times.
Wow.
So I used to say yes to all of them, and that would lead me to calls till like 1 in the morning or something, which I'm still excited about. But at some time, you kind of realize that you need more to it. There has to be a getting to know each other, regular catch ups, not like a first time kind of thing. So I started asking questions on those emails, like, we're really interested in your profile. We really think there's a great project that we want you to be part of. Then I start asking them questions. So that's how I kind of filter down. And then lastly, how I prioritize are ones that are likely to take place. And those usually happens with partners that I talk to on a regular basis. So there's probably 5 or 6 that I talk to at least once a month. And I know that what we discuss is actually in progress. It may not be their priority, I understand, but it's moving along.
Wow. That is quite a lot of moving parts. And you mentioned you have 2 kids. So how do you manage your time? You did say like, at one point it got to, quite a bit because everything's interesting and you have to kind of prioritize. So yeah, what do you do to balance your life? And is there anything else to kind of keep yourself more zen, I guess, or balanced?
Yeah, Joyce, I think Zen and wellness and mental health are like huge things in my life now. First of all, I don't get so worked up anymore because I'm running my own business. I made a conscious decision to not look for a full-time job that doesn't fit what I want. And I know my passion in this whole Web3 space is so strong. I believe in that so much and I believe in myself so much.
Mhm.
So I made that decision and that made things so much easier. In terms of like how I manage my kids, they're slightly older. They're in their preteens and teens. So they manage their own schedule really well. And to answer that, I have lots of great help. People I trust that kind of manages things for me as well. So I can fully work on building my business. And then my kids are also very aware of what I'm trying to achieve. I think they see that I want to be a role model for them. So I think that they see me kind of actively creating, working all kind of funny hours and everything. So I think they respect that as well. So they have a good understanding. Other than that, I just spend most of my time probably focusing on health and exercising now, which I didn't do for about 2 years. And I just prioritize for things that I enjoy. So I enjoy reading. So I kind of make time for reading. I enjoy slow living hobbies, I like to call them, like puzzles. I'm kind of a geek. I kind of like making like old school jigsaw puzzles.
Yeah, and even while doing that, you can multitask,
Exactly.
listen and do puzzles, doing different parts of the brain. Well, you also forgot to mention earlier, you're ambassador, for Roblox, so your kids must be quite excited about that, I'm assuming. Maybe they play Roblox, so I don't know, how did you get into that, and what's your role with that?
I need to clarify on there. I am a Roblox gaming ambassador for a design studio who
Mm,
builds on Roblox. So not directly with Roblox. Although let's put it out there. Maybe it's a good thing.
yeah,
These sort of momfluencer, mom gamers out there, you know?
yeah.
No, not, but let's put it out there, Joyce. Like,
Sounds good, but do you play
why
yourself?
not? I do. I go on it almost, I wouldn't say every day lately, but I did for a while. Here's the thing. I understood Roblox because my kids play Roblox.
Mhm.
And I've also given them a lot of Robux
Mm.
instead of Christmas presents and birthday presents. And I understood, like, this is why how I got into this whole metaverse, like, immediately. You know, I just
Mm.
kind of saw the attachment. That is their community. That's how where all their friends are. Their digital identity is more important than in real life. They don't care how they dress in real life. But don't forget, that was during kind of like COVID and
Right.
Hong Kong was under lockdown, so they couldn't go out. So they had birthday parties on Roblox, all that kind of stuff, right?
Wow.
But I go on mostly to check out brand activations and brand experiences,
Mhm.
okay? But
Mhm.
here's an insight. I check out all of those big branded ones. So like things like Gucci, Vans, Walmart just had one, Hugo Boss, Max Mara. These are all brands that build on Roblox.
Mm.
I go on it because I have a reason. I want to understand why brands build it and who are they looking to attract.
Right.
But my kids are yet to go into these games because they have their worlds that they actively go on because that's where their friends are.
I see. Interesting, but it is where it's heading, right? So in terms of kinda understanding the world from your kids and then researching for your brands, and you can bridge that. So that's quite interesting. My kid's getting to the age where he really wants to get on Roblox, and he's asking for Roblox. No. He plays on the app, so not, on the laptop version yet, so it hasn't been building world, it's more like playing and just kinda getting his, feet wet.
I'm the type who's like, but are you building? You could be building, you know?
Yeah,
That's what I
that's
think of my kids.
yeah, yeah. No, that's true. It's definitely getting towards that. He's 6.5, so it was a little early. Well, last year he started, so it was a little early for the laptop version, I felt.
There is still the danger of meeting people that they shouldn't be meeting. That is a problem.
Yeah.
And on that note, anything that happens in the real world can be duplicated in the digital, including bad behaviors, you know,
Mm. Yeah.
or real life lessons. My kids trade their assets on Roblox, and sometimes you have to do it at the official trading center, but sometimes they do offline trading.
Mm.
And you can imagine, I don't always give them Robux. So some of these things have to be acquired through effort and time to play a game, right?
Yep.
So then she would spend a lot of time earning coins or Robux or whatever. And she had this like limited edition item. But then once she did a off trade, that's not official, and she got scammed. And I have never seen her so heartbroken. So it was really sad.
Oh my god. That's true. That's good to know as well that it could be a positive,
It
learning
was
experience.
positive, but it's a learning experience for the
Yeah.
parent, tell you that.
Yes. True, that you can take that and mirror it to what
Yeah,
this may happen in real life as well.
yeah,
Be careful. Yeah, that is kinda scary too for as a parent, right? Like, that now you have to manage 2 worlds, right? Learnings and pitfalls in real world and in digital world. It's interesting. It's something you can't avoid, but yeah, it's definitely interesting. So, speaking of pitfalls, I mean, throughout your career, and changing many different directions, is there one particular major challenge that you remembered and learned from that you would like to kinda talk about?
having this, like, mental health bit, the awareness that is so important that you have to take care of your physical self and your mental self is very important. So I think what I learned was in different environments and settings with different people, dynamics, chemistry, stress, challenges, deadlines, all of these things come into play as part of working. Yeah. I think what I learned is certain things drain my energy and you don't have energy for anything else. And then you start to question yourself a lot. So I think the biggest thing I learned was through certain environments, it doesn't work for me. I learned to rebuild myself and put myself first. And I say that in terms of personal branding. I think as women, sometimes we fall into the trap of, oh, I'll talk about myself or I'll share my milestone when it gets bigger or when I'm more known, or I shouldn't mention it because it's so small and it sounds like I'm bragging.
Mhm.
So, what I learned from some of the experience I've had in the past is to own up for every little wins and little milestone you've had and embrace it. And I embrace it very quickly. I don't make it my main thing, but I acknowledge it and trust me, I'll let you know about it. This is the new attitude. Like, I will share it and I will put it out there,
Mm.
either online or tell somebody about it because it happened. So
Yeah.
the pitfall became a positive for me.
Wow, that's a great point. I mean, absolutely. For myself, and I've observed in so many different areas. And as you said, in the female, it's just mostly kind of trained that way to be like a bit more humble. And as you said, only talk about the major milestones. And but what about the steps going towards it? So I think that's such a great advice in terms of just put it out there. It's good and bad, but there's so many platforms out there. And I love the way you said it. Just kind of, you don't have to make a big deal out of it. Just mention it even if somebody picked up on it, picked up on it. If not, then at least I felt good I mentioned it. I'm like, "Oh, I got
And
this
you build
today."
up, yeah, and you build up the
Yeah.
confidence. And when you get that acknowledgement, then it kind of fuels you and you feel better. So these are the things that changed me a lot in the last 2 years when I started to pursue what I love. And I'm very thankful I found out what I love.
That's amazing advice. That's great. I'm inspired now to do more, put it out there.
Great. Yeah.
And speaking of that, like what else inspired you? I mean, you've talked about the last 2 years, and it sounds like you really found your passion. So that's so amazing, right? What else inspired you to do more and to get more into the lane that you're interested in?
I feel there's inspiration everywhere related to what I'm doing in Web3 and in Asia, and I hope in Asia Pacific. I think I get inspired by other thought leaders and industry experts for their kind of generosity to take time to create content and put it out there to share. There's probably different reasons why they do it. Some is because it's industry news, some is for their personal branding, some is just to get impressions, whatever. But I still find new inspirations through what they do because that usually introduces me to a new product, a new service, a new person, or solution. And I'm the type that is learn by doing. So I will download it. I will check out the website. I will contact that person. So that kind of helps me understand in a macro view what digital fashion means, um, and its ongoing kind of trajectory, right?
Yeah.
And other things are like traveling obviously gives me inspiration. You meet different people, different energies, so that's a given. And I guess the idea of getting acknowledgement because I did put my milestones out there, my small wins out there, people start to acknowledge it and they come to me. And that also makes me feel inspired, as in, I think I'm doing something right. People are listening to me and they want to hear more from me.
Mhm.
And I hope I can become the person that is like a positive advocate in this space because I think we need more of those. I'm not really looking at it in those like financialization kind of ways. I'm looking at it in the wholeness and the goodness of how it can change many ways how we interact, where it's like consumption, where it could be marketing new tactics, new strategies. I'm thinking of it like that. So because of that, I get a lot of new opportunities and those kind of further my goals. And that's part of my aspirations to kind of take digital fashion and bring it into Hong Kong and retail.
Awesome. And speaking of that, what are some of the next steps or next projects that you can tell us about?
So there's a few things that I'm working on, but the one that's kind of most exciting for me is I'm planning to host a larger scaled summit in Hong Kong that's targeting digital fashion and immersive commerce. And I hope that kind of brings more international players into Hong Kong and to kind of share all of the different kind of processes, thinking, ideas, technology, and explain it in a very retail context environment so we can get more brands to understand what is happening in the whole future of retail. So that's one thing I'm working on right now to find, just kind of piece it all together for this event. I don't expect it to be a large conference because I prefer something more exclusive, more intimate. People get to know each other.
That sounds like a lot of fun and amazing and bringing it to the next level, right? So awesome. Looking forward to it. Any other advice for our listeners in general?
I guess I just mentioned learn by doing, like there's no point just planning if you don't do, so you have to make active steps. Other things are if you're interested in digital fashion, it is the easiest thing to get into, to try it, to kind of understand it. And if they're interested in kind of propelling their entrepreneurship and trying to get more eyes on what they're doing, there's no better time than now to kind of think about using a platform that they're most comfortable with and create content. I think it's really like a creator's economy that you'll see that's a huge part of this whole Web3 ecosystem.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Joyce. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.